Can a simple shopping moment turn into something that changes everyone's life? Barron Trump witnessed a young father and his daughter facing a big struggle on an ordinary day. But he didn't just stand by. What he did changed everything for both the father and his little girl. This is the moment you don't want to miss. There are difficult moments in many people's lives, and sometimes a single act of kindness can change the world. The grocery store was more crowded than usual, with people rushing to grab essentials before the weekend. The shelves were completely stocked, and the sound of shopping carts echoed down the aisles. Barron Trump entered, dressed simply in a hoodie and jeans, blending in with the ordinary crowd. There was a calmness about him, a stark contrast to the usual public image he carried. Perhaps it was the exhaustion from the long week, or maybe it was the weight of the family name that constantly hung over him. Barron had always tried to lead a normal life, but the media, the paparazzi, and the public had never truly allowed him to do so. He was different from the rest of the Trump family. He wasn't someone trying to grab attention or make headlines. Today, though, he was just a young man, trying to get a few groceries to make it through the week. As he walked through the aisles, his shopping cart filled with essentials, some milk, eggs, fruit, and a few bags of chips, Barron noticed the usual hum of the store. But something felt off. The usual chatter had quieted as he passed by. A few customers' gazes lingered on him a little too long, and he sensed a familiar tension in the air. After all, he was Barron Trump. His thoughts were interrupted as he neared the checkout counter. A man in his mid-30s, wearing an old jacket, stood with a young girl beside him. The little girl was clutching a bag of teddy bear cookies, which were positioned near the aisle by the register. The man, with a few crumpled bills in hand, was nervously rummaging through his pockets. The girl with wide eyes was looking at the cashier, waiting for her father to pay. The man hesitated, his fingers lingering on the crumpled bills for a long time. He furrowed his brow and looked back and forth between his daughter's small teddy bear cookies and his wallet, unsure if he had enough money. The little girl's voice, seeing her father's nervous hands, rose fragilely. "Daddy, can we get my teddy cookies?" she asked. The innocence in her voice weighed heavily on the father's heart. The man lowered his head, his eyes shifting between his daughter and the cookies. He thought to himself, "I won't have enough for them, but I shouldn't tell her that. She's just a child." The father swallowed hard, redoing the math in his head, looking defeated. Struggling to swallow, he murmured, "I think I'll have to put something back," glancing at the cookies in his daughter's hand. Barron felt the emotional conflict inside as he watched the father and daughter. Should I ignore this? Should I help? What should I do? He paused for a moment, took a deep breath. The cashier's smug look and the silent tension that everyone was watching made Barron act. The cashier, showing no empathy, shrugged her shoulders. "If you can't afford it, maybe you should skip the sweets," she said, popping her gum. There was harshness in her tone. The words hung in the air like a cold slap, and the father's discomfort was clear to everyone. Barron's face tightened with deep and silent anger. He had been through uncomfortable situations himself, but this was different. He couldn't let this moment pass. He stepped forward, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the tension at the checkout. "Did I hear that right?" Barron's voice echoed slightly in the store's silence. "Are you telling a man he can't buy food for his child?" The cashier moved nervously, her eyes avoiding Barron's gaze. Other customers, noticing the sudden shift in the atmosphere, began murmuring quietly. The father was still standing there, looking at Barron. Was this just another celebrity stunt? Or was Barron really standing up for him? He wasn't sure, but Barron wasn't finished yet. Tilting his head slightly, Barron spoke again, his words carefully measured. "How can you be so indifferent? The man is trying to feed his daughter, and you're making him feel worse." The tension in the store was palpable. Other customers were now watching carefully, some shifting uncomfortably, others glancing at each other. Without raising his voice, Barron's words caused the cashier to grow even more uneasy with their weight. Without saying another word, Barron pulled a neatly folded $100 bill from his jacket pocket. The small crowd around the register stared at it in astonishment. Barron placed it on the counter, his face calm and determined. "There," Barron said, turning to the father. "This should be enough. Make your daughter happy. She deserves the best," he added. The father, pale face, looked at the bill, his hands trembling. You didn't have to do this, he muttered, his voice thick with emotion. But Barron simply shook his head. This isn't a handout. It's just doing the right thing. The cashier, unsure of what to say, stared at him in shock. Over time, a sense of regret began to stir inside her. Why was I so harsh, she thought. Her eyes softened in an instant, but she still didn't say anything. The little girl's eyes lit up as she looked at her father, then at Barron, still holding the teddy bear cookies to her chest. Daddy, can we get chocolate milk too? She asked. Barron smiled and the tension in the store finally loosened. Of course, sweetie. And at that moment, one by one, customers started stepping forward. A woman in a red coat placed $20 in the father's hand, a man in a blue jacket added $10, and an elderly woman with silver hair gently placed $50 in the pile. The snowball effect was undeniable. Within a few minutes, the father stood there holding over $200, his daughter's wide eyes filled with amazement. She blinked rapidly, unsure of what to make of the kindness shown by strangers. Barron looked at him, his face softening as he nodded in approval. Just make sure you give that little girl everything she deserves, Barron said. The father clutched the money tightly, still in disbelief. Thank you all, he whispered. As Barron turned to leave, the store quietly filled with applause, silently acknowledging the power of one person's actions. The cashier stood frozen in silence, realizing the depth of her mistake. As Barron stepped out into the cold evening air, the father and daughter walked behind him, their hands tightly clasped together, and for the first time that day, the weight of the world seemed just a little bit lighter. Barron took a deep breath and smiled, knowing he had made a difference today. Sometimes a small act of kindness can change someone's world. What happened in the grocery store wasn't just a transaction. It was a moment that touched a person's heart. In the face of adversity, compassion always lifts us higher. Do you think kindness can really change the world? If this story moved you, don't forget to like and share. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next video.